Welcome to Uppity Apes, the podcast where we swing through the wildest ideas about living free, thriving, and sticking it to the status quo. Picture this: you're standing on a single acre of land, just 43,560 square feet of dirt, grass, and possibility. No grocery stores, no utility bills, no Amazon deliveries, just you, the earth, and a dream to be 100% self-sufficient. Could you do it? Could you grow your own food, generate your own power, and live entirely off the grid on a plot smaller than a football field? That's the question we're diving into today, and trust me, it's a wild ride. We're going to unpack every angle: food, water, energy, shelter, and the gritty realities of making it work. Plus, we'll wrestle with the big arguments for and against this audacious goal. So, grab a shovel, and let's dig in. First, let's set the stage. 1 acre is about 3/4 the size of an American football field without the end zones. It's not a sprawling homestead, but it's not a postage stamp either. The idea of being 100% self-sufficient means producing everything you need: food, water, energy, and even basic tools, without relying on external systems. No running to Home Depot, no calling the plumber, no sneaking a pizza delivery when the crops fail. It's you and the land, locked in a primal dance of survival and ingenuity. The question is, can 1 acre sustain a single person, or maybe a small family, indefinitely? Let's break it down by the essentials: food, water, shelter, energy, and waste management. Then we'll get to the juicy arguments for and against this lifestyle. Starting with food, because if you can't eat, nothing else matters. To be self-sufficient, you need to grow enough calories and nutrients to keep you alive and healthy. The average adult needs about 2,000 to 2,500 calories per day, plus a balance of protein, fats, and carbohydrates. On 1 acre, you've got options, but it's tight. Let's do some math. A single acre can theoretically produce a lot of food if you're strategic. For example, according to the University of California's Division of Agriculture, an acre of well-managed land can yield up to 20,000 pounds of potatoes annually. That's enough calories to feed a person for years, assuming you don't get sick of spuds. But you can't live on potatoes alone. Sorry, Matt Damon in The Martian. You need diversity for nutrition, so you'd mix in crops like beans for protein, squash for vitamins, and grains like wheat or corn for carbs. A popular approach is biointensive gardening, pioneered by Jeavons, author of How to Grow More Vegetables. His method claims you can grow a complete diet for one person on as little as 4,000 square feet, less than 1/10 of an acre, using raised beds, companion planting, and heavy composting. You'd grow high-calorie crops like sweet potatoes, which can yield up to 100 pounds per 100 square feet, alongside nutrient-dense greens like kale and protein-rich legumes like lentils. You could even squeeze in a few fruit trees, like dwarf apples or cherries, for long-term yields. Animals? Chickens are a no-brainer. A small flock of 6 hens can produce 1,500 eggs a year, giving you protein and fats. If you've got space, a couple of dairy goats could provide milk, cheese, and manure for fertilizer. The catch? Every square foot has to work overtime. You're not just gardening, you're running a mini ecosystem. But food isn't just about plants and animals, it's about soil. 1 acre can degrade fast if you don't manage it. Over at the Rodale Institute, they've shown that regenerative farming practices, like crop rotation, cover cropping, and composting, can keep soil fertile indefinitely. You need to recycle every scrap of organic waste, from kitchen peels to chicken poop, to maintain nutrient cycles. If you mess this up, your yields crash, and you're eating dirt. Literally. Now, water. Without it, your crops die, your animals die, and you're not far behind. The average person needs about a gallon of drinking water per day, plus more for cooking, hygiene, and irrigation. If your acre has a natural water source, a stream, pond, or reliable well, you're golden. But what if it doesn't? Rainwater harvesting is your best bet. According to the EPA, a 1,000 square foot roof can capture about 600 gallons of water per inch of rainfall. On 1 acre, you could set up multiple catchment systems, think rain barrels or cisterns, to store thousands of gallons. In a region with 30 inches of annual rain, you could collect enough to irrigate crops and meet personal needs, assuming you're not in a drought. Drip irrigation, which uses 20 to 50% less water than sprinklers, per the University of California, would stretch your supply. If you're really hardcore, you could dig a well by hand. But that's a gamble. Wells can cost thousands to drill, and there's no guarantee you'll hit water. Shelter is next. You don't need a McMansion, but you need something weatherproof and warm. A tiny house, cob house, or yurt could fit nicely on an acre. Cob, made from clay, sand, and straw, is dirt cheap and sustainable. The book The Hand-Sculpted House by Ianto Evans details how you can build a 200 square foot cob home for under $5,000 using materials from your land. If you're in a cold climate, insulation is critical. Straw bales or even recycled materials can keep costs low. You'd need a wood stove for heat, and 1 acre can grow enough firewood if you plant fast-growing trees like willow or poplar. The Arbor Day Foundation says a single acre of managed woodland can yield a cord of firewood every few years, enough to keep you toasty. Energy is trickier. If you're truly self-sufficient, you're not plugging into the grid. Solar panels are the go-to for off-grid living. A small system, say, 2 kilowatts, can power lights, a laptop, and basic appliances. According to the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, a 2 kilowatt system costs about $6,000 to install, but you'd need to maintain and eventually replace batteries. You could supplement with a micro wind turbine if your acre is breezy, or a micro hydro generator if you've got a stream. For cooking, a wood-fired rocket stove is efficient and uses minimal fuel. The catch? You'll need to be ruthless about energy conservation. No binge-watching Netflix or running an electric dryer. Your lifestyle would look more like Little House on the Prairie than the Jetsons. Waste management might not sound sexy, but it's non-negotiable. Human waste can be handled with a composting toilet, like those outlined in Joseph Jenkins' The Humanure Handbook. Properly managed, your poop becomes fertilizer, closing the nutrient loop. Food scraps and crop residues go into compost piles or worm bins. Nothing gets wasted, not even your wastewater. Grey water from washing can irrigate non-edible plants if you use biodegradable soaps. The goal is a zero-waste system where everything cycles back into the land. So, that's the blueprint. It's possible, on paper, to grow food, capture water, build shelter, generate energy, and manage waste on 1 acre. But is it realistic? Let's get into the arguments for and against, because this is where the rubber meets the road. First, the case for going 100% self-sufficient on 1 acre. The biggest argument is freedom. You're untethered from the system, no utility bills, no corporate food chains, no reliance on a fragile supply chain that could collapse in a crisis. Look at the 2020 pandemic, grocery shelves emptied, and people panicked. If you're self-sufficient, you're immune to that chaos. Plus, it's empowering. There's something primal about growing your own food, building your own shelter, and knowing you can survive without a Walmart. Studies from the Journal of Environmental Psychology show that self-reliant lifestyles boost mental health, reduce stress, and foster a sense of purpose. You're not just surviving, you're thriving on your terms. Another pro is sustainability. Industrial agriculture is a mess. According to the UN, it's responsible for 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, mostly from livestock and chemical fertilizers. On your acre, you're carbon neutral, recycling waste, and regenerating soil. You're not just living, you're healing the planet. And let's talk cost. After the initial setup, say, $10,000 for solar panels, tools, and seeds, you're done. No rent, no groceries, no electric bills. Compare that to the average American's $3,000 monthly living expenses, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Over a decade, you're saving hundreds of thousands. Then there's resilience. Climate change, economic instability, geopolitical chaos, self-sufficiency is a hedge against uncertainty. If the grid goes down or food prices spike, you're fine. You've got your potatoes, your rainwater, and your cob house. Plus, the skills you learn, gardening, animal husbandry, building, are invaluable. They're the kind of knowledge that can't be outsourced or automated. But let's flip the coin. The arguments against self-sufficiency on 1 acre are brutal, and they start with one word: work. This isn't a 9 to 5, it's a 24/7 grind. You're not just a farmer, you're a carpenter, plumber, electrician, and veterinarian. If your crops fail because of pests, drought, or disease, you don't eat. The USDA reports that small-scale farmers lose 20 to 30% of crops to pests annually, even with modern tools. On 1 acre, there's no margin for error. A single bad season could starve you out. And don't forget time. Biointensive gardening might sound efficient, but Jeavons himself admits it takes 20 to 40 hours a week to maintain yields for one person. Got kids? Good luck. Then there's isolation. Humans are social creatures, and complete self-sufficiency cuts you off from community. Trading with neighbors, bartering skills, or even just grabbing a coffee isn't an option if you're 100% self-reliant. A 2019 study in social science and medicine found that social isolation increases mortality risk by 26 to 29%. You might be free, but you're also alone. And what about skills? Most of us aren't born knowing how to butcher a goat or forge a shovel. The learning curve is steep, and mistakes are costly. If your well runs dry or your solar panels fry, you're not calling a repairman, you're the repairman. Another big con is scale. 1 acre is tiny. If you dedicate half to crops, a quarter to animals, and the rest to your house and infrastructure, you're stretched thin. What if you need medicine? You can't grow penicillin. Or tools? You're not smelting iron on an acre. True self-sufficiency means making everything: clothes, soap, nails, and that's nearly impossible without industrial processes. Even the Amish, often seen as self-sufficient, rely on community and trade. A 2021 article in Permaculture Magazine pointed out that most self-sufficient homesteaders still buy seeds, tools, or fuel. 100% self-sufficiency is a myth unless you're willing to live like it's 1800. And let's not ignore health risks. A vegan diet might work on paper, but if you're raising animals, you're exposed to zoonotic diseases. The CDC says 60% of infectious diseases come from animals. If you're slaughtering your own chickens, one wrong cut could land you with salmonella. And physical injuries? A broken leg from hauling firewood could be a death sentence without medical care. Even mental health takes a hit. Constant labor and isolation can lead to burnout or depression, as documented in studies of off-grid communities. So, where does this leave us? It's possible, but it's not pretty. You'd need to be a jack of all trades, relentlessly disciplined, and a little bit lucky. The pro side, freedom, sustainability, resilience, is seductive. It's the ultimate middle finger to a world that wants you tethered to a desk and a debit card. But the cons, endless work, isolation, and the razor-thin margin for error, are sobering. 1 acre can sustain you, but only if you're willing to sacrifice comfort, leisure, and maybe your sanity. Let's wrap this up with a reality check. Historical data gives us a clue. In medieval Europe, a single acre could support a peasant family, but they supplemented with hunting, foraging, and trade. Modern tech like solar panels and drip irrigation gives you an edge, but you're still at nature's mercy. My take? You can get close to 100% self-sufficiency, maybe 90%, but pure, uncompromising self-reliance might be a pipe dream unless you're a superhuman. Still, the pursuit is noble. It's about taking control, living intentionally, and proving you don't need the system to survive. That's it for this episode of Uppity Apes. I hope you're as fired up about this as I am. If you've got a question you want me to tackle, maybe about off-grid tech, survival skills, or sticking it to the man, drop it in the comments below. I read every one, and your ideas fuel this show. While you're at it, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. We're building a tribe of free thinkers here, and I want you in it. Until next time, keep swinging, you uppity apes.